بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله طيب لا يقبل إلا طيبا وإن الله أمر المؤمنين بما أمر به المرسلين فقال تعالى يا أيها الرسول كلوا من طيبات واعملوا صالحا وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم ثم ذكر رجل يطيل السفر أشعث أغبر يمد يديه إلى السماء يا رب يا رب ومطعمه حرام ومشربه حرام وملبسه حرام وغذي بالحرام فأنى يستجاب له. رواه Muslim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We started this hadith off last week, and this hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah, and we spoke about how in this hadith Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the word tayyib. That He mentions the word tayyib, saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions the word tayyib, saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is tayyib, He is pure, He is clean. And He doesn't accept from us anything, but it has to be clean and pure. And the word tayyib, in Arabic, perfume is called tib, right? So perfume in Arabic is called tib. Why? Because it's so pure, the fragrance that it gives out is pure as well. So anything that is pure, we call it tib. And we mentioned the different types of tayyib that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. He mentions shajaratan tayyibatan, a clean, pure tree, that the roots are deep into the ground and the branches are high up in the sky. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions a kalimatun tayyibatan, a pure, clean word, which is the word, the kalima, la ilaha illallah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions hayatun tayyibatan, a blessed life. And then we mentioned how when a person, he lives a nice, clean life, he is, everything about him is nice and pure. And we also mentioned how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, that for the pure women and men are pure spouses, right? And then when they lived a pure life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return says that when the angels, when you come to the paradises, angels will be waiting, greeting and saying that Salamun alaykum tibtum, that you lived a pure life, and in return this is what you get. فَدْخُلُوهَا خَالِدِينَ. Because you lived a pure life, because your life was so pure, because your life had this quality of tayyib in it, this is your reward, and that is فَدْخُلُوهَا خَالِدِينَ, enter into the garden of paradise. Now carrying on with this hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned this verse of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, يَا أَيُّهَا الرَّسُولُ كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ وَأَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. The O Messenger, eat from that which is pure and do good deeds. And we spoke about this, that what is the connection of eating pure and doing good deeds? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions two things, and He mentions both of these things side by side, but what is the connection? How does eating pure, putting something in your mouth, have to do with something that you do with your hands, your feet, your body, your eyes, your tongue? What's the connection? And we spoke about how anything that we put into our body, it then fuels us in that same way. And we gave the example like gas that you put into your car. If you put premium quality gas, your car will have the effect and it will run better. But if you put low grade gas, then your car will have the effect as well. Likewise, if you put in your body something that is beloved to Allah, something that is clean and pure, something that is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something that is halal, and we spoke about halal not only being that it's zabiyah halal, right? Not only mean that it's chicken or it's hand slaughtered or it's machine slaughtered, but we spoke about how the earning where you earn that money from, where you bought the food, this is not only meat, but anything that we eat, right? It could be vegetables, it could be water, it could be something that's extremely pure, but where did you get the money from? And we spoke about on the Day of Judgment how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single person, they won't be able to move their feet except that they have to answer 4 questions. How you spent your life, how you spent your youth, where you got your wealth from, and then where do you spend it, right? Did you earn a halal earning, and after earning a halal earning, did you spend it in a halal way as well? A lot of times our parents, they work extremely hard. They work extremely hard, turning night and the day into one to earn us a halal earning. But then we take that halal money and then we spend it in a haram way. And na'udhu billah min that, you can just imagine that our parents will be asked about it, that where was your money spent? You earned halal earning, but your children, they then spend it in a haram way. Right? So we have to be careful to make sure that our parents are not questioned because of us. So the connection between halal earning and good deeds, wa'malu salihah, is if you fill your body with halal, if you fill your body with tayyib, then your body will be now fueled to do good deeds. Right? It will have the effect where your body will want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because what is running in your veins, what is inside your body, it is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now another thing, if you look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there's a book called Shama'il Tirmizi. Shama'il, the characteristics of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this book, it has a collection of hadiths that describe the physical characteristics of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And a book that when you read through the hadith, you deeply fall in love with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You can imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as if he's here in front of us. The Sahaba Arbaeen, they go into great detail about describing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They say that this is how his hair was. How was the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he had jet black hair. But very few strands of white hair. They're waves in it like an ocean. And he used to keep long hair. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he had a larger forehead. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one sahabi says that his teeth were perfect. It is as if somebody took pearls and lined them up. Right? They said that the shoulders of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam were nice and broad, and they're meaty shoulders. And in Shama'il, another hadith says that sawa al-batan, that his stomach and his chest was in line. Right? His stomach and his chest was in line. Meaning that he didn't have a beer belly. He didn't have a biryani belly. Right? That he ate so much food that his stomach was sticking out. So, by looking at the Shama'il of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one thing we learned that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he lived a healthy life. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he lived a healthy life. Commonly we ask the question, did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam eat sweet first or did he eat namkeen first? Right? We ask this question, did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam finish his meal with sweet or namkeen? Shaykh Zakir Rahmatullah alayhi, he answers this question. He says that, mere pyara, tell me one time Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had both of these options. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he didn't prefer sweet or namkeen. He preferred, what did he prefer? He preferred ifaqa, staying hungry. The sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is staying hungry. That Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ, that he gave preference to other companions over himself. So in this hadith, we see that, through the hadith of Shama'il Tirmizi, we see that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he lived a very healthy life. And a part of tayyib is, not only that we earn the money that is halal, not only that the meat, it is halal, but also it has to be healthy as well. Why? Because then this has an effect on us. Right? If a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all good health. If a person eats continuous sweet, and unhealthy food, then this will have a negative effect on his body. And now the ibadah that he wants to do, he's not able to do. You ask so many other people in our community that they really want to fast in the month of Ramadan. But unfortunately, because this is a disease that infests our the Indian Pakistani heritage, that we have diabetes, we have high cholesterol, we have blood pressure, and because of this, unfortunately, they're not able to fast. They have to take the insulin, they have to take their medication. So now this person, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in a very, very famous hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Iqtanim khamsan qabla khamsin." That value 5 things before 5 things. And he says, value your youth before you become sick. Right? So, eating those things that can later on lead us to a healthy life, that can later on lead us to diseases and sicknesses, this is not a part of tayyib. But tayyib is eating pure in such a way that that this then it gives our body the nutrition that we need, and it is healthy for us, it is good for us, and with this we can then worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're able, this powers us. What is the reason for us to eat? Right? Very commonly in Urdu we always say that you eat to live, and you don't live to eat, right? Jeene ke liye khate, khane ke liye jeete nahi, right? You eat, why? So you can live. And we eat, why? So that this food it gives us the nutrition, it gives us power for us to then worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But imagine that we're sucking into our mouths those things. Now again, don't get me wrong, right? The temptation of food is something that, everybody falls weak to, right? Put some sweet, or put some fried food, or put some biryani, or some halim, some nihari, something good. Any person will fall weak to it. They say that the way to a man's heart is his stomach. You feed him well, and he will stay happy, right? Me and Raza, we were speaking about this a couple of days ago, that, men, we love to eat. But, this is a part of controlling our controlling our desires, and eating, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's okay. But we should try to feed ourselves those things that are not only pure, but at the same time, that is healthy for us, that can give us the nutrition that we need to then worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he carried on, and he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. O you who believe, first ayat was, O Messenger of Allah, eat from that which is pure and do good deeds. Right? Now, the second Quran ayat that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. Eat from that which is pure, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Ma razaqnakum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives rizq to who He loves and who He doesn't love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives rizq to who He loves and who He doesn't love. Right? وَمَا مِن دَابَةٍ, that there is no creature on the face of this planet except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken care of his rizq, has taken care of the food that he's going to eat. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set aside that this is the food that you're going to get. He has taken care of the food that's going to go into our mouths. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then says, He gives rizq to whoever He loves and who He doesn't love. But He only gives deen to who He loves. If you have received iman, just because you have rizq, just because you have a nice house, nice car, you have an 8-course meal, you have a nice bank balance, this doesn't mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives His rizq to who He loves and who He doesn't love. But if you have iman, this shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you. This shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. This shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares about you and He wants you to enter Jannah. That you are from those human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to burn in the fire of Jannah. You are from those human beings that you will become the wiras of the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he didn't leave money or gold, but he left Quran and Hadith. He left iman, he left a religion, and he left the Jannah for us to earn. And the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen each and every one of us with iman shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us, that we have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then this hadith carries on, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he paints a picture. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he paints a picture. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلٌ. He says, imagine there's a man. Right? He mentioned a man. He said, Rasulullah mentioned a man. And this man, he reaches certain conditions. Right? The characteristics Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, each one of these characteristics, they reach a condition. The first condition is yatilu safr. Yatilu safr, that he's traveled a long way. Right? This is one condition. And what is this condition? In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Salathun, 3 people. That when they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in different hadiths, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned different people, but in this one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, that there are 3 people, when they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no hijab, there is no barrier. It's his dua and it's direct to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that when they make dua, it's direct to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is straight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of them is a musafir. The dua of a musafir. Because why this person, when a person goes on safar, he goes through the hardships, he goes through the difficulty of safar. When we travel, even nowadays when we travel, we drive in air condition. We have our DVD, our navigation, our entertainment system, but still when we get out of the car, we stretch and we're tired. Right? Safar, it comes, a safar, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in one hadith he says that traveling is a small piece of adab. It comes with a level of difficulty. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, imagine this person, he's traveled a long way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when a person travels, the further he travels, the more long his travel is, the more his du'as become accepted. Right? Because he gets more and more, it breaks him down. For a couple of days he's away from his family, that's fine. Right? Maybe the first couple of days he might even enjoy it. But then 5 days, 7 days, a month, 2 months into it, it really starts to beat a person up. That I miss my kids, I miss my wife, I miss my house, I miss my bed, I miss my food. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said one of the people whose dua are directly accepted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dua of musafir. And this teaches us a lesson that when we go on travel, we should make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we travel, we start to worry about all the other things around us. Our food, our car, our plane, our work, this, that. But the one thing that's really important that we should make a point is that we should make dua while we travel. Why? Because at that time, you and I who commit sins continuously, there are no barrier between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That from this hadith we see that we raise our hands to the sky, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and directly it gets accepted. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the second person in this hadith is a person who's being oppressed. Right? You do wrong onto somebody, you hurt somebody, you harm somebody, and that person makes dua against you. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam hadith says, ittaqun, that beware, right? Watch out. Make sure you stay away from the dua of a mazlum. That when you oppress somebody and they make dua against you, that they're directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Now, just imagine. First, let's go to number 3. The third dua is, the third person there's no barrier, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the third person that there's no barrier between his dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the dua of a father for his child. This is dua for a father for his child. When the father makes dua for his child, he makes it out of love. He forgets himself and all he's making dua for his child. And it's straight from his heart and it's straight from, he's begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see that, a child, his test results are going to come in. That day the child will be in his bed knocked out, but the father will be making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The father will be on the musalla making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the masjid. And when he goes home laying in bed, his eyes won't be able to close, and he keep opening his eyes and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, make sure his results are good. Oh Allah, let him get accepted in this so-and-so school. Oh Allah, find him a righteous spouse. So the dua of a father, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam here says that there is no barrier between his dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you might ask, what about the dua of a mother? Right? What about the dua of a mother? That is badajal awla, right? If the dua of a father is going to be accepted, then 100% dua of a mother is going to be accepted. Right? Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said our mothers have more rights upon us. That the father, at times fathers we're a bit different. Right? Fathers, we're a bit different. But mother's heart is extremely pure. A father will become angry and upset. And our egos will overtake us. But a mother will break her own ego, break her own self, and all she will look at is her child with love. So the way that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says a father's dua, on top of that you can say it takes more preference that a mother's dua is accepted as well. Now going back to what we were speaking about, you combine number 2 and 3. Number 2 and 3, you combine them two. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Imagine if there is a mother or father who feels that their child oppresses them, who feels that they don't give me time, they don't give me respect, they oppress me, they always go against me, they don't give me love, they don't give me compassion. This person now reaches 2 of the 3 people. He is now an oppressed person, and now he's a father and a parent as well. And if one of them, there was no barrier between his dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now just imagine this person reaches 2 of these conditions. Just imagine how close his dua is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you keep this in mind, as parents, we should always remember that we should watch what comes out of our tongues for our children. We should be careful. As parents, so as children, we should be careful that we don't hurt our parents, we don't oppress our parents, and our parents only have good things to say, make dua for us. And as parents, we should be extremely careful what we say about our children, what dua we make about our children. Why? Because it is very likely we might say something out of anger, and then that dua might be accepted. And there's a great scholar by the name of Imam Araj. Imam Araj, a great scholar by the name of Imam Araj. And in Arabic, the word Araj means langra. A person that walks with a limp. Right? Imam Araj was asked that, Imam, where do you get this name from? If it's not your real name, how did you get this title, Imam Araj? He said, I got the title of Araj from I was a little boy. And he goes, what happened, I had a bird, and I tied a string to its leg. I tried a smaller string, but a sabil lo kan nabil. That a child is a child, even if it's a prophet. A child is always a child. And he goes, I tied a string to this bird, and I let go of the bird. And when the bird would begin to fly, I pull it down. And then I would let it go, and I would pull it down. And my mother saw me, and she stopped me, saying that don't do it. Why? You might hurt this bird. No, you might hurt the leg. He goes, and my mother went away, and I carried on. I let the bird go, and as soon as it began to fly, I pulled it down. And then what happened is, I hurt the bird's leg. I pulled the leg out. And when this happened, and I went crying to my mother, mother, look what I did. My mother made dua against me. Saying that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hurt your leg the way that you hurt this bird's leg. And he goes, since that day, I walk with a limp. Since that day, I walk with a limp. So it's very important that we watch the words that we say for our children. Sometimes, out of anger, we might say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse you, or may this happen to you, may that happen to you. Right? But we have to be extremely careful for the words that we use for our children. But going back to what we were talking about before, these are three people that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that there is no barrier between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the three is a traveler. And in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Yatilu safar, that this person, he's traveled for a very long time. And the fact that he's traveled for a very long time, these next two qualities, ash'asa abghara, that he is unkept, and his hair is a mess, his clothes are a mess, and he has dirt all over him. Right? The fact that he's been traveling for so long, you could tell. يَمُدُّ يَدَيْهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, and he raises his hands to the sky. Right? He raises his hands to the sky. And one of these, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hayyun kareemun, and when the son of Adam raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he feels shy. He feels shy. That my servant is raising his hands to me, how am I going to let them return back empty? My servant is raising his hand to me, how am I going to return them back empty? As human beings, we have a level of haya. We have a level of shame and modesty. If a person were to come to us and say, can I borrow $5? He said, not at the moment. But if they put his hand out in front of us, paisa, please, give me some money. Right? He puts his hand out in front of you. You feel shy that the guy put his hand out. Let me put something there. Let me give him a little something. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he feels shy. That when my servants raise their hand towards me, that I let their hands go back empty without anything. Without being accepted. So these are two qualities. Number one, he's traveled for a long time. Number two, he's raised his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third thing that this person has done, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, actually going back, he says that ash'asa abghara, that he's unkept and dirty, and this is mustar. Mustar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one ayah, he says that the dua of a mustar, what is a mustar? Let me first explain what a mustar is. A mustar is somebody who's extremely desperate, that all the other gates and doors are closed. Right? He has no other hope. He has no other way out, and this is the last hope he has is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like a person who the doctors have, unfortunately given the news that you don't have any, there's no hope anymore. And now this person, his only hope is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when a person is that desperate, When the person has reached that level where his complete hope is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept that person's dua. Right? So as desperate as the person is, Rasulullah sallallahu one hadith, he teaches us that when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for dua, when we ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should nag Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should beg and show that we are desperate and that we need His help. And this is why we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is only you that we ask for help. We don't ask anybody else for help. Nobody else can help us. All of our other people all other ways of help, the doors of help, they have been closed. So when a person reaches that stage where he is extremely desperate, then this also qualifies him that his dua should be accepted. So we have three qualities so far. One, that he's a traveler. Second, that he's a mustar, that he's in a desperate condition. Number three, he's raised his hands to the sky. And the fourth quality, he says, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. Another hadith is actually mentioned that he says, Ya Rab 3 times. He says, Ya Rab 3 times. Now when we make dua, there is a special acceptance in the number 3. Right? Now, I'm not raising any theories and conspiracies in the number 3. But through the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whoever makes dua, and while making dua, he says, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. He says this 3 times. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, his dua will be accepted. Whatever dua you make, you raise your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you say this 3 times, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept this person's dua. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whoever says the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, 3 times. Again, in each one you are accepting how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You're saying, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And you say this 3 times, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts this dua. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whoever says, Allahumma ajirna minan nar, Allahumma ajirna minan nar, Allahumma ajirna minan nar, he asks protection from the fire of Jahannam 3 times. In return, Jahannam will speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, free him from me. Free him from me, I do not want him in me. Another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whoever asks for Jannah 3 times. Whoever asks for Jannah 3 times, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah. Oh Allah, give me Jannah. Oh Allah, give me Jannah. Oh Allah, give me Jannah. Jannah will speak up to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jannah will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I want him in me. Give him Jannah. Let me have him and let him come inside me. So in this hadith, this person has reached all 4 qualities. Right? He is a traveler. He is a mustar. He has raised his hands to the sky. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feels ashamed to let his hands go down empty. And he's called upon the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 3 times. But, so each one of these qualities, just one of these qualities, it makes this person liable that his du'as are accepted immediately. But the fact that he has all 4, Rasulullah sallallahu mentioned all 4, these 4 qualities, showing that this person's dua should be accepted immediately. But the last part, Rasulullah sallallahu says, وَمَتْأَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. He's reached all 4 of these conditions, and each one of the conditions itself is liable to make him, his dua accepted. But وَمَتْأَمُهُ حَرَامٌ. His food that he's ate, that is impermissible. He's earned it through an impermissible way. It itself is impermissible. It is haram. وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ. We're not talking about he's drinking alcohol. But even the water that he's drunk, or the juice that he's drunk, he's bought it from haram money. Or he's cheated somebody for it. Or he's deceived somebody for it. وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ. And he's drunk from haram. وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ. Why? Because the first 2 things, every human being, we number 1 depend on food. And then after food is our drink, right? Water that we drink. And then after that, the third thing that we depend on is the clothing that we have. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, وَمَلْبَسُهُ haram. The clothes that he has and he beautifies himself, that is haram as well. And then on top, وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. And from a small age, when he was a little boy, since that time his body was only nutritioned by haram. Right? His father's business was maybe haram. Or, since the time that he started earning, he didn't care about what's halal, what's right, what's wrong. All he cared about is, let me make some extra money. Let me make some extra money. Don't worry, let me keep this person. I'll lie to this person. I'll deceive that person. All I care about is how I can earn some extra dollars. Right? وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ, and he was nutritioned by haram. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asks a rhetorical question saying, how is it possible this person's dua is going to be accepted? How is it possible? That yes, he might have met all the conditions, and he might be extremely close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but everything about this person is haram. Everything about this person is impermissible. That he ate impermissible, he drank impermissible, the clothes that he has is impermissible. And at the same time, his nutrition was done by the impermissible things. Rasulullah sallallahu says, فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. How is this person, how is his dua going to be accepted? In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that every dua of a believer is accepted. Every dua of a believer who asks with sincerity is accepted. Right? With a clean heart, it is accepted. Now, sometimes we might feel that why is our dua not accepted? Why is our dua not accepted? Now, when we look at this hadith, we see that a person should now reflect back on what is he feeding himself. Where is he getting his earnings from? Right? And in another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I mentioned this hadith before, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hadith Qudsi says that I am with my servant the way he asks, the way he thinks of me. I am with my servant the way he thinks of me. If a person thinks that his dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept his dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept his dua. If he thinks to himself that I'm a nalaik, I'm a kamina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he won't accept my duas. But let me just ask, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't accept his duas. Right? When a person makes dua, he should have that firm belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept my dua. Hajjaj bin Yusuf, a great tyrant. Hajjaj bin Yusuf, a great tyrant, but there were some good qualities of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. He did some good things as well. One time, a blind man was doing tawaf around the Kaaba. A blind man was doing tawaf around the Kaaba, and after 3 rounds, Hajjaj bin Yusuf stopped him. He says, how many rounds do you have left? He goes, I did 3, I have 4 rounds left. Hajjaj bin Yusuf says, okay, by the time you don't finish your tawaf, if you can't see, I will kill you. Blind person, he says, by the time you don't finish the tawaf, you have 4 rounds to go. If you cannot see by that time, I'm going to kill you. I will have your head. They say about Hajjaj bin Yusuf, he was hungry for blood. Right? He loved killing people. And he has, but he's taken the life of so many companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he says this to this person, and this person, he's thinking to himself, how am I going to get my eyesight? Right? There's no way I can get my eyesight. I've been blind my whole life. How am I going to get my eyesight in 4 rounds? But he begins to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he begins to cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, give me my eyesight. Oh Allah, give me my eyesight. And he has this firm belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept my dua. Right? Now his dua before, it was just by his tongue. Right? Before when he did the first round, all the duas that he was making, he was just saying by his tongue. Right? His mind wasn't there. Hajjaj bin Yusuf was teaching him a lesson. What was his lesson? That when you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it shouldn't just be by your tongue, but it should come from your heart. Be there when you make dua. Sometimes we've been making duas from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since we were little kids. And we automatically start our duas off like that. Right? Without even thinking, we say the dua. Oh Allah, make me nick. Oh Allah, give me rozi. Oh Allah, give me this, give me that. These are the duas that we just say. As soon as we start a dua, these are the duas that we just spill out of our mouth. And we say it just from our tongue. We don't even mean it from our heart. Yes, yes, we want to be nick, and yes, we want this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But these are duas that we say from our tongue. And Hajjaj bin Yusuf is telling that if you don't make dua from your heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you your eyesight, then I'm going to kill you. And by the time that this blind person, by the time he finishes his 4th tawaf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restores his eyesight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restores his eyesight. Why now? His du'as are not from his tongue, but they are from his heart. And he becomes so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts his du'as. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that there are those servants that they become so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they have so firm belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I make du'as, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely accept it. And when you have a relationship with somebody, when you have a relationship with somebody, you have confidence in that person. That this person now, he has confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when I ask for dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will accept it. And there are stages of acceptance, right? We're not saying immediate acceptance, but there are stages of acceptance, which inshallah we'll talk about. Then one hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that when a person reaches that level, that there are those people that when they could take oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept my dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will go ahead and accept his dua. Right? That he has such confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he will say that I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept my dua, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return will accept the dua. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that there are five stages of dua, the acceptance of dua. The first stage is that a person, when he makes dua, immediately he gets what he wants. So he raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, when I go outside of the masjid, I want a Ferrari there waiting for me. And he goes outside and he has what he wants. Right? First stage. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts his dua, and he accepts his dua immediately. On the spot, done. Right? You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, tomorrow I have an exam. Give me the ability to pass my exam. You go through the exam and alhamdulillah you pass the exam. Right? Tomorrow I have a job interview. You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, give me this job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the job. First thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts the dua immediately. The second stage is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts that dua, but when it's best for you. Right? When it's best for you. You make the same dua. Oh Allah, give me this job. But this particular job, it might not be good for you, or you might not be ready for this job. Later on, when you are ready for the job, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you that same job. Or later on, when you get a better offer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you He gives you that job. So the second stage is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts your dua, but after a delay when it's better for you. Okay? The third stage of dua, the acceptance of dua, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dua that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts it, but He gives you something better. Right? He accepts it, but He gives you something better. Right? That you will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, Oh Allah, give me, I know that you want my own self, how it will be, that give me a B. I'll be happy with a B in tomorrow's test. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces that B with a A. That you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, give me a child. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces that child and gives you multiple children. Oh Allah, give me a righteous spouse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces that, gives you a righteous spouse, and He gives you, someone who will make you better as well. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the third stage is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces that dua and gives you something that is better than what you asked for. The fourth stage is that instead of accepting that dua, right, this fourth stage of acceptance is, instead of giving what you ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blocks a hardship that's coming towards you. Right? So you make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, let me have so-and-so job. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a bala, a hardship that was supposed to come to you. Right? Something difficult was going to happen in your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed that hardship. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that dua, the power of dua is that the dua, it can change the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preordained for us, destiny. Dua, it has that power that it can change the destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The power of dua, it's beyond what we can imagine. Okay? So when a person, in this stage, a person, he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and instead of getting what he wants, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the hardship from his path. And the fifth stage, the final stage, is that when a person asks something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give what he wants. But in return, when this person will be resurrected on the day of judgment, he will be given a pile of good deeds. And he will look at these good deeds and he will say that these aren't mine. Right? These are somebody else's, these are mine. And then he will be told that yes, these are yours. Why? Because there was a certain dua that you made in the dunya that wasn't accepted then, and this is the reward that you get for that dua. This is the reward that you get for that dua. And this person will look at this, the pile of good deeds there, and he'll say to himself, gosh, only if, man, why did this not happen? Why did I not know this before? Why did any of my du'as be accepted in dunya? I wish none of my du'as were accepted in the dunya, and I got piles of just like this in the hereafter. Right? So he'll say, gosh, only if none of my du'as were accepted in the dunya. I wish I didn't get anything. And I was given piles like this in the hereafter. Right? So these are the different stages of making dua. Before we wrap up, so move the clock. Okay.
It's 9:30. It's 8:45.
Okay. The other day I commented, alhamdulillah, the clock there. So someone. Oh, okay. I give nazar to that clock. Okay. So before we wrap up, inshallah, there is a method of making dua. Right? A method how a person should make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when we talk about a method, these are particular steps that we take when making dua. And we spoke about this before, that our state of making dua now, right? In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I mentioned this hadith before as well, the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Ad-dua mukhli bala." Dua is the essence of worship. It's the reason why you worship. It's the reason why you pray your salah. It's the reason why you do good deeds, so you can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can accept your du'as. Right? So the reason why we worship is so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts our dua. But there are steps on how to make dua. Right? Things, a method of making dua. Our current situation is that, if we ask ourselves, how much time do we spend in dua? How much time do we spend in dua? Do we spend 20 minutes making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Unfortunately, no. 10 minutes, very few people will be able to raise their hands. 5 minutes, maybe a couple hands more. But majority of us, we make an extremely short dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we complain to Allah that my duas aren't accepted. Right? Alhamdulillah, dua is such a thing that you can make dua wherever you are, in any condition you are. Right? It doesn't have to be a certain time, it doesn't have to be a certain method, but there are certain ways that you please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when you please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way, then it is more likely that your du'as are accepted. Right? For instance, if I randomly ask somebody for something, they'll say, do you want? No. But if I do my work, first I compliment their hair. Your hair, mashallah, looking nice. Your clothes, your itter that you have on, very beautiful. Then I compliment you on something else about them. This person each time is getting more happy. And then I ask them, they say, look, yeah, no, of course, take it, no problem. Right? With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we learn that just like that, there's a method of making dua, that if you use this method, then inshallah it will raise a possibility of our duas being accepted. It gives us that ikhlas. It gives us that work that we need to build when making dua. And this, of course, comes to the etiquettes of making dua. The first step of making dua, now, this is the order. The first thing a person should do when making dua, he should first praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Instead of jumping directly into their own dua, number one, you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even in Surah Fatiha, if you look at Surah Fatiha, which is the dua itself, the first ayat are, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Right? The first duas are, we just praise Allah. So when you want to ask somebody for something, again, we first compliment them. Right? You compliment them directly. So when the first step of making dua, you begin to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want an easy way to praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can read Surah Fatiha. Surah Fatiha is a hamd. Right? We call Surah Fatiha hamd. So you can read Surah Fatiha. Or you can say the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Go through the different names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus. Right? Or any other way that you can praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Mujib al-Da'wat. Right? You praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first step. The second step is, you praise someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Right? You praise somebody who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Right? Going back to the original example I used, number one, I praise Afan Bhai. Afan Bhai, you're very generous. That's me praising him. Then I can say, Afan, your brother is generous as well. Right? I praise somebody who has a relationship with the person I'm asking for. So number one, you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we praise somebody who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and that is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So first is we begin to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam. After that, we read durud upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. You know, my teacher, one of my first teachers in India, he told me, Mubeen, that durud in a dua is like an engine on a train. Durud in a dua is like an engine on a train. That the more engine you put, the faster the train will go. Now if you look at some trains, they will have one engine in the front, or two engines in the front, or three engines in the front. And then you'll see some trains that will have engines in the front, and they'll have engines in the back as well. Why? Because of load. And they want this train to go fast. So he said, if you read dua in the beginning, as well as the end, your dua will go faster to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Qayyim, he writes, that dua is like a bow and arrow. Dua is like a bow and arrow. The more you stretch it, the faster it will go. And the further it will go. So Ibn Qayyim writes, the dua is like a bow and arrow. The more you stretch it, the more you ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You put some durud onto there. You put some praise and hamd onto there. Right? You stretch your dua out, and the more fast it will go, and the further it will go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After praising Allah and after sending durud and salutation from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the third step is to ask for the ummah. Ask for the ummah. Right? You ask for everybody. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whoever makes dua that, oh Allah, forgive the ummah. Oh Allah, forgive the ummah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that he will get one good deed, one good reward for every single person on the dunya. Whether this person is alive or the person has gone. Anybody in the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you will get one good deed on that person's behalf. Now, imagine how many people are in the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But just by mentioning, just by saying, oh Allah, forgive the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Oh Allah, have mercy on the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Oh Allah, ease the pain of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For the millions and billions of human beings and Muslims in this ummah, we get one neki we get one good deed for each and every one of them. Right? So, the third is that you make dua for the whole ummah. People that you know, people that you don't know. Muslims in general, or humanity in general. And then the fourth step is that you make dua for other people. Right? You make dua for your parents. You make dua for your friends. You make dua for your teachers. You make dua for people that asked you to make dua. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, when the son of Adam, when a person makes dua for his brother that is not there, an angel comes down and he says, Ameen, and he says, for you be the same. For you be the same. So you make dua for somebody else, our dua, again, it's weak. But when the angel in return says, for you the same, he is making dua for us. So that you might make dua, that Allah, give so-and-so person a righteous spouse. Right? Or give so-and-so person happiness in his marriage. And the angel has just made dua for happiness in your marriage. The angel has just made dua that you have a righteous spouse. You ask, oh Allah, make this person children the coolness of his eyes. The angel has just made dua that, oh Allah, make his children the coolness of his eyes. So after making dua for the whole ummah, we learn that we should make dua for other people. And the next step, before making dua for ourselves, we divide making dua to ourselves into two categories. Right? Now we made dua for the whole ummah, we made dua for other people, again, including our parents, including our muhsineen, people that have done favors upon us, our teachers, our elders, our friends, our community, everyone that we might know. Now, before we make dua for ourselves, we divide that into two parts. Right? We divide that into two parts. First is that which is important. A person should ask for his hereafter. Right? His hereafter. And in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions making dua, He says that you make dua he mentions two things in the hereafter and once in the dunya. Right? Two things for the hereafter, once in the dunya. So you ask double for, if you're going to spend 1 minute making dua for the dunya, then you should spend 2 minutes for the hereafter. Right? Again, we're opposite. We're complete opposite. 1, 2 for the akhirah, and everything for the dunya. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there are those people that ask for the dunya. And we give it to them. But, وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ, there's nothing for them in the hereafter. There's nothing in the hereafter. But we learn that you should ask for the dunya. Ask for a nice house. Ask for a righteous spouse. Ask for righteous children. Ask for a nice career. The dua is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So you look at this dua, right? If let's divide this dua into 3 parts. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So for the hereafter there are 2, and the dunya there is 1. So this shows you the ratio that you should be making. That you first, so when you make dua for yourself, first you make dua for your akhirah. That, oh Allah, help me on the Qul Sirat. Oh Allah, make sure my good deeds outweigh my bad deeds. Oh Allah, give me the water at the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Oh Allah, give me Jannatul Firdaus. Ask for the best Jannah. Don't ask for the little stuff, but ask for the best Jannah. Go into detail here. Right? Go into detail and ask and ask and ask. Then you ask for your need at this dunya. Ask for everything you want in this dunya. And then, after dividing your self needs, then you should ask that, oh Allah, give me everything that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked for. Right? Again, our dua is we. We don't even know how to make dua. So we should say that, oh Allah, anything good that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked for, give me that. And anything bad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam seek protection from, save me from that. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he goes into detail of all the things that he's asked for protection from. Right? Allahumma inni a'udhu min adhab al-qabr, wa min adhab al-hashr, wa min fitnat al-mahya wal-mamat. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he asks for protection from all these things. And if these things don't come into our mind, we say, oh Allah, give me everything that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked for. And anything that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked for protection from, give me that as well. And then again, now we should put our engines back. You once again, you read durud upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You read durud upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, just to make your dua go a bit faster. Right? Just to put some speed into your dua. And then your final bit that you have, you once again praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You once again praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this dua format, again, we'll take different hadiths of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we put this method together. Finding a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finding a way that our du'as will be able to be accepted, putting other things first, and then putting ourselves at the last. And then any kotai, any shortcomings that we have, we fill that up by asking what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has asked for. We send durud upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the final step is, once again, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ. When my servants ask about me, when my servants ask about me, I am close by. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي. Sometimes we ask, where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That I need help here. I need Allah. Where is my Allah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. I'm right with you. I'm close by. But all you have to do, make the initiative. Ask. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept. This quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepting, this is one of, you can't say a weakness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from any weakness. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to accept du'as. That even the worst being possible is shaitan. Shaitan made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, give me a long life. Let me live until the hereafter. Right? Let me live until the end of time. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you're making dua? Ja, de diya. Right? You ask for me, I'll accept it. Even when shaitan made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted his dua. Now, are we worse than shaitan? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala definitely accepted our duas. But we have to come with a clean heart, a pure heart. And when shaitan made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said that, give me a long life to the end of time. Why? What will I do? That I will come from in front of them. And I will attack the people from in front of them. And I will come from behind them. And I will come from the right and I will come from the left. Right? He will come from us from all directions where we won't even know shaitan has a number, but shaitan is tricking us. Now if you look at these directions that he mentioned 4 directions. That he will come from ahead of us, behind us, from our left, and from our right, from our right, from our left. And he left 2 off. He left on top and on bottom. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, when a person raises his hands to the sky. He raises his hands to the sky. Why? Shaitan, he can't come from above us. He forgot on top, when he raises his hand to the sky, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts. And when a person goes down into sajda, he might be all the way in the ground and his nose might be in the dirt, but at this time, you are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He even accepted the dua of shaitan. And He accepted the dua of shaitan in a way that at that time shaitan was rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this teaches us, it's very easy to make dua at the time of hardship. Something bad happens in our family. Somebody, it's in a car accident. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our family and protect, our wealth and everything, our health. But if something happens to us, it's very easy then to raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that when a person makes dua at the time of hardship, the angels say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose voice is this? This is a new voice. This voice is not familiar. A new person, new customer. First time in this market, right? We've never heard this voice before. But when a person asks a dua in the good times, when things are good, it's not only that you come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at hardship time. If you come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the time of hardship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept as well. But you become familiar with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You come when things are good. When business is going good, when your family is healthy. When alhamdulillah your kids are doing good in school. When alhamdulillah your kids, they have good friends. When alhamdulillah you have a righteous spouse. When things between you and your spouse are going well. When alhamdulillah your izzat is in contact. Your health is in contact. Everything is good. You still raise your hand to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you make your voice familiar. That the angels, as soon as you make dua, say that, Acha, he's a Purana customer. Purana garake. Right? We know who this is. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the time of hardships, this dua, expedite his dua. Why? Because he's an important customer of ours. So, and when this hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that when a person makes dua at the time of hardship, the angels, they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose voice is this? Someone new. So again, this teaches us that you make dua at the time of hardship and you make dua at the time of ease. So this hadith has a lot to do with dua, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that when a person is making this dua, and he's reached all the conditions of acceptance, but there are some things that will make our duas weak, that will bring weakness into our dua, and that is what we consume, what we eat, what we drink, what we wear. وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ. Now if you look at this last part of this hadith, the last part of the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ. That how will his dua be accepted? He doesn't say that his du'as will not be accepted. If Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said his du'as will not be accepted, then there's no way our du'as will be accepted. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam leaves a little door open, saying that how will his du'a be accepted? Right? They can still be accepted by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this is the ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person does all of these things, his du'as are usually not accepted. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, then He will accept our du'as. Again, this hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and He only accepts that which is pure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful, and He loves beautiful things. So the deeds that we have, anything, our family, the words that we say, the food that we put on our body, it should all be pure. And then this hadith carries on that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the believers what He has commanded the messengers. فَقَالَ تَعَالَى, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الرَّسُولُ كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ, that O messengers, eat from that which is pure, وَأَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. If you eat from that which is pure, this will then fuel your body and give you the ability to do good deeds. وَقَالَ تَعَالَى, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. That all believers eat from that which is pure and from which we have given you as rizq. And we spoke about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives rizq to who He likes and who He doesn't like. وَمَا مِن دَابَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. That there is no creature on the face of the planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't taken care of his rizq. It is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him rizq. But He only gives iman and deen to who He loves. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this hadith says, ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلٌ, that he mentioned a man, that this man, he reached his conditions, that he's traveled a long way, that there are three people whose du'as are not, that there's no boundary between the du'as and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number one, a person who travels. Number two, a person who's being oppressed. And number three, a father's dua for the mother, the father's dua for his child, and we also mentioned that when the father's dua is accepted, then badarja ola, the mother's dua is accepted as well. That he's a traveler, and at the same time, his clothes are unkept, his hair is unkept, he's reached a state of mustah, he's desperate. And yamuddu yadayhi ila sama, that he raises his hand to the sky. And Allah, in the hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to raise his hand to the sky until his armpits would be able to be seen. In another hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would raise his hand to the sky so much that his upper garment would fall back. Right? And we spoke about the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said when the son of Adam raises his hands, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he feels shy to let his hands go down without giving him what he's asked for. And then he said, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. He's called upon to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, another hadith, he mentions this, Ya Rab, 3 times. And when a person calls on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. He asks this 3 times to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept his dua. And when a person says, Allahumma ajirna min an-nar, Allahumma ajirna min an-nar, Allahumma ajirna min an-nar 3 times, then Jannah will say, oh Allah, free him from me. And when a person says that, oh Allah, give me Jannah, right? Oh Allah, give me Jannah. Oh Allah, give me Jannah. Then Jannah will say, oh Allah, I want him. Let him have it. Right? That he's reached these conditions, but the main factor is that what he's ate is haram. What he's drank is haram. What he wears is haram. Right? Again, we're not talking about the exact, zabiyah halal. Of course, that's included here, but at the same time, he can be eating something that is pure, but he's earned it through haram. He can be drinking something that is pure. He can be drinking Fiji bottled water. Right? Not alcohol, but pure, clean water. He can be drinking Zamzam water. But the means that he earned that water, that was haram. The clothes that he's wearing, they fit the Islamic Sharia. But the money that he bought it from, that was haram. Well, ghudhiya bil haram, and he has nurtured his body with haram. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, how will his du'as be accepted? And then we spoke about a method of making dua. You begin to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you praise Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you ask for the whole ummah, you ask dua from other people. Then you ask for your akhirah, you make that 2 parts, and 1 part for this dunya. Then you follow that up with any shortcomings by the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then again you praise Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, dua is the essence of ibadah. It's the essence of ibadah. Dua mukhul ibadah. It's the reason why we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ رَبُّمْ وَدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. That tell my servants to ask. Why aren't you asking? Duni mangto. Why aren't you asking? أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. I will accept your du'as. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.